Sup, you beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. We have a lot to talk about today, but first, I'm very excited to announce our biggest and best drop of the year just went live over at beautifulbastard.com. I really think the team crushed it. Like, there's something awesome for everyone. We've got our brand new One Day We'll All Be Skeletons gear in a mix of tie-dye and dip dye, along with our brand new Fragile line, just perfect for my fellow glass cannons out there, where I'm just asking you to handle with care because I feel like I'm about to fucking explode, and I will and have, especially because these days, at least inside, I'm feeling more and more unhinged, which inspired our tie-dye puff print tee, along with our color block distressed hoodie. Also, for you beautiful bastards, I think spooky season should never end. We got the emotionally gothic gear. Y'all have also been asking for keychains, so boom, we knocked those out for you. Really love them. Then of course, there are days where you don't want to wear your feelings, you just want to look good, you want to feel good. So for that, we just did a big launch of core essentials. Classic colorways, new colorways, our two tie-dye 2-packs. I mean, they feel like $80, $90 tees, and you can snack them for 20 bucks a pop if you get a 3-pack. Also, since the weather's changing, we have these fantastic long sleeve packs, both in new and classic colors. And so yeah, go to beautifulbastard.com to get any and all of what you want right now. Get your size before it sells out. But like I said, we have a lot of news to talk about today, so let's just jump into it, starting with one of the most requested stories from over the weekend, and that is Mr. Beast has been reported to the FBI. This one, by fellow creator Rosanna Pansino, and two, because she's claiming that Mr. Beast likely knew about Ava Chris Tyson's inappropriate online behavior for several years. But I am gonna preface this by saying stay to the end of this story because it gets messy. Right? And specifically, we're talking about claims from a video that Rosanna posted over the weekend sharing messages that were allegedly sent in Mr. Beast's company Telegram between 2020 and 2021. But some of the most concerning messages that Rosanna showed being sent by Ava, who posted multiple memes joking about sex offenders, including one that said, "Why yes, I'm asexual predator." Another including a photo of a young child with a very sexually explicit caption. Some messages also had jokes sexualizing underage cartoon characters. And this, along with a meme that included Nazi imagery. Now, as far as the legitimacy of these messages, Rosanna said that she verified them with multiple former Mr. Beast staffers. She also had Dogpack404 with her in the video, who you might remember as the former Mr. Beast employee who made multiple videos levying allegations against the company. And in Rosanna's video, the two also claimed that Ava allegedly sent a photo claiming that it was a 13-year-old Ivanka Trump. And while Rosanna censored that photo, she said it was a very sexualized image that could very well be considered CP. And with that, even though they said that it's hard to verify with certainty if that is Ivanka, they said that's not the main problem. The main problem is that Ava would ever send a photo that she believed showed any minor being exposed.
Either way, like having Ava Tyson saying, oh, this photo is allegedly Ivanka Trump when she's 13 and it's clearly sexually explicit. You can, she's wearing a see-through top. That's insane.
That is wildly inappropriate and just insane for a company chat.
And while obviously all of this is focused on Ava, you had Rosanna claiming that not only was Mr. Beast in the chat and could see all these, she also said that he participated and even made jokes that seemed to reference Ava's behavior, which for context here, they said that Mr. Beast's name in the chat was actually John Smith. And that John Smith account appears to have sent a message saying Ava would love a show that Rosanna and Dogpack said was about a 26-year-old man's relationship with a teenager.
So Jimmy in the chats is saying, I bet Chris would love this show because it's right up her alley.
Why do you think Chris would love that show, Jimmy?
Why specifically this anime out of all animes out there?
And they really focused on these messages because, as you likely remember, Ava was accused of grooming earlier this year, and Mr. Beast responded by only saying that he was recently made aware of the accusations and does not condone them in any way, with Ava then getting removed from the company. But in this video, Rosanna claims that Mr. Beast must have known about her behavior. And with all this, she also argued that all these messages are especially disturbing when you consider that they were sent in a company chat from people who make content directed at kids.
Whoever he's working with, who's in his orbit, then also has access to a ton of these kids. You have to be really thoughtful about people that you work with and have in your inner circle because they're also representing you and your brand, and he definitely knew.
And according to Rosanna, there are just tons and tons of messages, and she said that she could only showcase so many in her video, but promised that she would share more as she parsed through them. And that is then exactly what she did yesterday, posting a video on X where she just scrolled through the alleged messages. And in those, it appears Ava sent even more sexual memes, including one that referenced a kid's race car bed. It also appeared to show Mr. Beast sharing a meme that used homophobic language, but Mr. Beast called that meme an accurate representation of how we treat each other. And after sharing that batch of alleged messages, Rosanna wrote, I have reported what I found and my concerns to the authorities at FBI. Hopefully they will look into these Mr. Beast Telegram company chat logs and other concerns. But then also tagging YouTube to get the platform's attention on this as well. But for now, we'll have to wait to see if anything comes from this, right? So far, Mr. Beast hasn't publicly addressed these alleged messages, but some others have pushed back online, claiming Rosanna misrepresented a lot of the messages, also saying they were actually sent in a chat created specifically for sharing memes. Some also saying they gave misleading details about that anime show and what she described as CP. And in fact, regarding one of the things, Dogpack has now released an update. Writing I have received the original source of the Ivanka photo. It's from an April 2000 British GQ magazine photo shoot. Surprisingly, it is actually her, and she was 18 at the time. Then adding, I'm sure now people will flip and say I should have reverse image searched the photo more before going to the authorities and the media. Also claiming Roe first visited the FBI before filming the YouTube video, another lie that's being spread. And then closing, everything was handled in accordance with the law. And again, Roe and I never reported Ava's allegation of 13 as fact. I showed what Ava alleged, I showed the law, I said that if it actually was a 13-year-old, it would constitute as CP in my opinion. Other people ran CP as fact, not us. But in the meantime, of course, I gotta pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts with all this? But then, shifting gears, we gotta talk about Donald Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. Because for one reason or another, this shit's going in history books. But at least in the short term, in this 24-hour news cycle, a big part of the reason this got so much attention is because of headlines ranging from offensive Latino, Puerto Rico jokes at Trump MSG rally launch wave of criticism, to Trump headlines Madison Square Garden rally after vulgar, racist remarks from allies. Where you just look out, whether it be headlines or people talking on the internet, people noting the attempted jokes about black people, Jewish people, Latinos, as well as racist and misogynistic comments about Vice President Kamala Harris. Where you had folks like Grant Cardone not so subtly calling Harris a whore.
She makes her boss look competent. She's a fake. I'm not here to invalidate her. She's a fake, a fraud. She's a pretender. Her and her pimp handlers will destroy our country.
Then, for example, as Tucker Carlson was planting the seeds for doubt if Kamala Harris wins this 50-50 election, he said it this way.
It's going to be pretty tough for them 10 days from now to look in the eye to America with a straight face. It's going to be pretty hard to look at us and say, you know what? Kamala Harris, she got 85 million votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president, it was just a groundswell of popular support. And anyone who thinks otherwise is just a freak or a criminal.
With many arguing that he was playing into the racist angle because he knows that Harris is black and Indian, not Samoan and Malaysian. Or people saying it's like he went out of his way to choose two random brown ethnicities. During this day of joy, Harris was also called the Antichrist by David Rem, one of Trump's lifelong friends, even though the two reportedly just met 2 weeks ago. Also, I will say notably with Rem, he emphasized that Trump needs a Latino vote and that it would, quote, switch this election for your favor. Though, possibly one of the speakers last night might have fucked that up. Right? And that because what comedian Tony Hinchcliffe said on stage, which if you don't recognize this guy, he's the host of the extremely popular comedy show called Kill Tony. And apparently Hinchcliffe thought it would be a great idea to just kind of do a set at this political rally. With these now being kind of the main highlights that are getting shared around.
That's cool black guy with a thing on his head. What the hell is that? A lampshade? Look at this guy. Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm just kidding. That's one of my buddies. He had a Halloween party last night. We had fun. We carved watermelons together. It was awesome. Well, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country.
And really, that line about Latinos, as well as this next clip, they've garnered the most attention.
It is absolutely wild times. It really, really is. And, you know, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Right, and immediately Tony's comments and his attempted jokes, they were called out as racist and drew the attention of major names from Puerto Rico. Like with Bad Bunny, for example, he didn't address Tony directly, but instead he just reposted clips from a recent Harris campaign video highlighting her support for Puerto Ricans. Right, and that video actually came out before Trump's rally, but the timing ended up being pretty good for her, and many took it as him officially endorsing Harris. So this also has others far more explicitly called out Tony, such as Ricky Martin, who wrote on a reposted clip of Tony, "This is what they think of us," as well as an explicit Harris endorsement. You also, this is gonna sound like a Mad Lib, had AOC and Tim Walz reacting to the clip while streaming on Twitch and playing games, with Walz highlighting that Puerto Ricans are Americans and they serve in the US at among the highest rates, and AOC adding,
I need people to understand that when you have some a-hole calling Puerto Rico floating garbage, know that that's what they think about you. That is exactly, like, that's just what they think about you. It's what they think about anyone who makes less money than them. It's what they think about the people who serve them food in a restaurant. It's what they think about the people who fold their clothes in a store. Like,
You're
dude,
right.
are you serious?
The
Like, are
privilege
you
of being-
serious?
Yeah, the privilege of being on this campaign is traveling across the entire country. There are hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans across in battleground states that need to send them a message on this.
I want them to,
You
like,
gotta vote.
You even had some former Trump supporting Puerto Ricans like Geraldo Rivera having expressed frustration and anger at the comments, saying, fuck these racists. Latino men of goodwill, have pride in yourselves and your ancestors. A vote for Trump is a vote against self-respect. I mean, he even had Republican Senator Rick Scott denouncing it. Now, all that said, for his part, Tony tried to downplay the situation by saying they were just jokes and later responded to Walz with, these people have no sense of humor. Wild that a vice presidential candidate would take time out of his, quote, busy schedule to analyze a joke taken out of context to make it seem racist. I love Puerto Rico and vacationing there. I made fun of everyone. Watch the whole set. I'm a comedian, Tim. Might be time to change your tampon. But right, the whole it's just a joke, it wasn't working for a lot of people who had takes like, I understand this might have been intended as a joke by a comedian, but when comments like this are made at a political rally, not a comedy club, they take on a different and more damaging meaning. And to see what they mean, right, you have people comparing two clips. First, this clip of Rudy Giuliani bashing Palestinians.
And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old. They won't let a Palestinian in Jordan. They won't let a Palestinian in Egypt. And Harris wants to bring them to you. Donald Trump's on the side of Israel, and they're on the side of the terrorists.
And then separately, you have this clip of Hinchcliffe from the event.
When it comes to Israel and Palestine, we're all thinking the same thing. Settle your stuff already. Best out of 3. Rock, paper, scissors. You know the Palestinians are going to throw rock every time. But you also know the Jews have a hard time throwing that paper. You know what I'm saying?
Right, you have a number of people noting this is the same exact event. So for many, it can be hard to tell where the joke ends and where the rhetoric begins. But now with all that said, of course, there's a question of, well, does this matter? Does this or does anything these days move the needle? And with that, you have some saying, yes, absolutely. Or at the very least, there is a fear that it might. And the reason for that is the Trump campaign's actually trying to do damage control by distancing themselves from Tony's comments. Although notably, Trump himself has yet to comment on that situation. But it does make sense that the people trying to get him elected would want to try to create that distance. Because as it turns out, Latinos and Puerto Ricans in particular are a major voting bloc in key battleground states. I mean, it's such a disaster. You have some claiming that this rally alone and that specific moment, it may have done serious damage to Trump's chances of getting reelected, which is exactly why we saw people like a former Trump White House official writing. Who wants to tell these guys there are 500,000 Puerto Ricans living in battleground PA whose votes are up for grabs? And former White House official Peter Navarro saying that Tony is, quote, the biggest, stupidest asshole that ever came down the comedy pipe. Then separate from that, you had political analyst Stephen Miller making some headlines. Right in that, because he was pushing America is for Americans only, which a number of people argued is suspiciously similar to the Nazi slogan, Germany for the Germans, and the KKK pamphlet titled America for Americans. Although there's also the argument that it's not that deep and it's just a populist sentiment. But then finally, that brings us to Trump, who actually ends up being the smallest part of this story. And I'm also just gonna kind of paraphrase because his remarks, I mean, he kind of just rambled. Right? Like it would just add another 10 minutes to this piece for him to get to the point. Though to his credit, at points, he did talk about an actual policy point, which is rare for his campaign. But he promised a tax credit for those who take care of elderly family members or those with disabilities, which notably is similar to what Harris has also recently promised. But then other than that, it was kind of the classic Trump stuff, rambling bits about migrants, journalists, and other people that he's not a fan of. But he made vague threats to his opponents and called them the enemy from within. And of course, in the past, he clarified this meant, quote, the crazy lunatics we have, the fascists, the Marxists, the communists, the people that we have that are actually running the country. Also for migrants, he promised to use the 1798 Alien and Sedition Act to go after them, which to be clear would be a completely unprecedented use of the law. He also bashed the military leaders of the past few decades, likely because many have come out warning about Trump's insane fantasies while in the White House that we talked about last week. But yeah, I mean, time will tell if this had any impact and what it is. You're not gonna have to wait that long because I mean, the election is in a week. What the fuck? It's actually happening. And so yeah, I'll just end on your daily reminder. Vote. Vote early if you can. Do not push this off. You can go to vote.org, select your state, find any and all information that you need to vote, and get your like-minded friends and family to do it as well. As far as all of us should be concerned, good polls, bad polls, shouldn't matter. Vote. That's the only thing that matters. It's the difference between words and actions. But then, just taking a second, you know, how many of you kicked off 2024 promising to finally turn a passion project into profit? Right? Launch a business, a lucrative side hustle, or just monetize a hobby? Because for me, I'd been wanting to launch a book club for years, and that procrastination recently ended thanks to our sponsor over at Squarespace. Right? In less than an hour, DeFranco's book club was born, which by the way, got a new recommendation coming in just a few days. Right? But it was also easy because Squarespace has the tools that you need. And I mean, for both creating and selling content, courses, or products, physically physical and digital. It's simple. You just upload and customize your content with the powerful Fluid Engine editor, and you add a paywall if you want, you set a price if you want, you do what you want. And that includes charging one-time fees, selling subscriptions, and if you need a starting point, they've got a ton of stunning professional templates with drag and drop editing that makes the site design incredibly simple. There's no coding required. And there's a reason that Squarespace has been a trusted partner and sponsor of the PDS for years, and we can honestly say it is a breeze. I mean, we even leverage Squarespace for our very own daily newsletter, The Daily Dip, where over 50,000 of you beautiful bastards keep up with our coverage in your inboxes, take part in daily polls, giveaways, and now you can get the PDS show notes with sources over there. So y'all kickstart your own digital space today with a free trial over at squarespace.com/Phil, or just scan the QR code on screen. And don't forget to use code Phil for 10% off when you're ready to launch. That's squarespace.com/Phil. Then hospitals are rushing to use AI tools, but we're now seeing that some are faulty and it could have serious consequences. Right? For example, OpenAI has a supposedly super awesome AI-powered transcription tool called Whisper, which a key thing they say has a near human-level robustness and accuracy. And definitely, this could be an incredibly useful tool in a number of industries. But with this specifically, we're seeing medical centers reportedly rushing to implement Whisper-based tools in order to transcribe patients' consultations with doctors, something that would just save them a crazy amount of time on note-taking and reports. But the problem here is that according to more than a dozen experts, Whisper has a bad habit of just making shit up. I mean, we're talking about software engineers, developers, academic researchers, all saying that Whisper is prone to just making up chunks of information, with this reportedly including things like racial commentary, violent rhetoric, and even imagined medical treatments. And this isn't completely surprising because this is not a new problem. AI making stuff up or hallucinating, it's been making headlines for a while now. And while we currently don't know the exact scope of the issue with Whisper specifically, some of the experiences the researchers and engineers have had so far, they are concerning. Like for example, one researcher from the University of Michigan said he found hallucinations in 8 out of every 10 of Whisper's audio transcriptions, as well as a machine learning engineer saying that he found hallucinations in roughly half of the 100+ hours of Whisper transcriptions that he analyzed. And according to researchers, the way those numbers are trending could lead to tens of thousands of faulty transcriptions over millions of recordings, something that could have really grave consequences in hospitals, according to Alondra Nelson, who led the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy for the Biden administration until last year. With Nelson also adding there, nobody wants a misdiagnosis. There should be a higher bar. But also with this, I will say it's not like nobody's doing anything about this. In fact, the issue of hallucinations has prompted experts, advocates, and even former OpenAI employees to push for more federal regulations on AI. And you have a current OpenAI spokesperson saying they are continually studying how to reduce hallucinations, and the company even warned that Whisper should not be used in, quote, high-risk domains, aka hospitals. But that warning, it hasn't stopped anything. But reportedly, more than 30,000 clinicians and 40 health systems have started using a Whisper-based tool built by Nabla. And there you have Nabla saying they are aware of the hallucination issue and they're working to address it, and saying at this point, they require medical providers to edit and approve the transcriptions. Though an issue that some researchers have with Nabla's tool is that it erases the original recording for, quote, data safety reasons, which unfortunately means that it is then impossible to compare the AI-generated transcription to the original audio, which unsurprisingly had a former OpenAI engineer saying this is definitely a cause of concern. You can't catch errors if you take away the ground truth. So definitely something you should be aware of, and definitely something you should keep in mind in general as more and more of these technologies just kind of slip into everyday things, right? Because this movement, it's not stopping. It's only going to be happening at a faster and faster pace. Imperfect or not, that's the way that it's been, and it's the way that it'll kind of always be. And then Georgia is bracing itself for chaos right now. Well, that could also be true for the state. I'm actually talking about the country of Georgia, right? And that because the president there is refusing to recognize the official result of the country's parliamentary election and is calling for a protest. But they're saying that the ruling party rigged the election with the help of the Kremlin, and with that, saying that the country's future hangs in the balance, right? And that's because this election this weekend, it wasn't just any election. It was the election widely seen as deciding whether Georgia's future would be with Europe or with Russia. And actually, to properly explain this, we got to back up a bit, because this goal of joining the EU, it's actually been enshrined in Georgia's constitution since 2018, with the country then formally applying in 2022 and then gaining candidate status in 2023. And reportedly, nearly 80% of Georgian people supported EU membership, with notably Georgia's ruling party in parliament also claiming that it supports EU membership, but lately it's just been moving the country in the exact opposite direction. Right in there, we're talking about the Georgian Dream Party. They've been in power since 2012, and it was actually founded by a billionaire who made most of his fortune in Russia in the 1990s and is viewed by many as the most powerful man in Georgia. And that's even though he hasn't held public office in more than a decade. But in any case, back in May, the party voted to override a presidential veto to push through the so-called foreign agent law, even as tens of thousands of people took to the streets in protest. And specifically, this law requires organizations receiving more than 20% of their revenues from abroad to register as acting in the interest of a foreign power. With the key thing being that that is the same type of law that's had a devastating impact on press freedom and human rights in Russia, forcing many organizations to stop operating there entirely. And with that, it led to the EU halting Georgia's accession process and cutting off aid to the country. But despite that, Georgian Dream just continued moving in this direction, again, emulating Russia when it approved legislation targeting LGBTQ+ rights last month, with them specifically approving a bill that would ban same-sex marriage and same-sex adoption, as well as depictions of LGBTQ+ relations and people in the media. And so with that, the idea that the EU threatened Georgia's traditional family values, it's been a big talking point by Georgian Dream and Russian propaganda. Also, another big one has been the idea that joining the EU would mean risking war with Russia. And all of this is you have Georgian Dream leaders vowing to ban opposition parties and remove opposition lawmakers after the elections, calling them criminals and traitors. Which is why with that, these opposition parties actually put some of their differences aside and saying that if they won a majority, they would work together to undo the damage caused by Georgian Dream. But come election day, they didn't even get close. With Georgian Dream earning nearly 54% of the vote, and the four main opposition groups, they received just over 37%, at least according to the official results. Because you see, the problem is that several international monitoring organizations reported that there had been all sorts of reason to doubt the results. The International Society for Fair Elections and Democracy, for example, said that before the election, violations included voter pressure, intimidation, confiscation of identity cards, collection/processing of personal data, and voter bribery. And then election day violations included cases of ballot stuffing, multiple voting, more voter bribery, and the expulsion of observers, with the organization ultimately concluding, given the combination of these violations, the results cannot reflect the will of the voters. And so with all that, the four opposition groups were unanimous in saying that they did not recognize the election as legitimate, with then the president joined by leaders of the opposition saying, "I do not recognize these elections. Recognizing them would be tantamount to legitimizing Russia's takeover of Georgia. We cannot surrender our European future for the sake of future generations." And so as of right now, while I'm recording, we're actually seeing Georgians heeding the call and taking to the streets in peaceful protest. And then of course, also with that, who knows how all this is going to play out in the weeks and months ahead. But then, shifting gears, we should talk about Israel openly attacking Iran for the very first time this past week. Or with this said to be a response to Iran's attack on Israel earlier this month, which, is said to be a response to other Israeli attacks as well. And then of course, you can just keep going back like that for a while. But in any case, in these latest strikes, 1 civilian and 4 soldiers were reportedly killed. And this is notably, the strikes were way more limited than some had been expecting. Right? Iranian officials had repeatedly warned attacks on nuclear or energy infrastructure would cross a red line. And with that, we saw the US publicly pressuring Israel to avoid these types of targets, with then Israeli officials reportedly assuring the Biden administration that they wouldn't a couple of weeks ago. But of course, everyone was still on edge. But in the end there, the IDF reportedly focused on air defense, radar sites, and long-range missile production facilities in Iran, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying yesterday that the strikes had, quote, severely damaged Iran's defense capability and its ability to produce missiles. And then beyond that, it was seemingly about sending a message, right, showing Iran that it's capable of hitting high-value targets if and when it wants to. But also with this, we're seeing Iranian officials downplaying the impact of the attack. We're saying most missiles were actually intercepted and those that weren't caused only limited damage to air defense systems. But also a key takeaway is that the response has been much more muted than in the past, with, for example, their supreme leaders saying it is up to the authorities to determine how to convey the power and will of the Iranian people to the Israeli regime and to take actions that serve the interests of this nation and country. Right? And that's a guy who in the past has threatened to flatten cities if Israel attacked Iran, or to hit Israel 10 times if they strike once. But now, we're seeing the Iranian president saying Iran would, quote, give an appropriate response to the attack, and adding that they don't seek war. So now it's kind of a question of what does appropriate mean, right? And with that, the US, for its part, along with allies, are urging Iran to just stand down. With a spokesperson for the National Security Council also drawing a comparison between Iran's attack and Israel's response, saying Israel, quote, avoided populated areas and focused solely on military targets, contrary to Iran's attack against Israel that targeted Israel's most populous city. But of course, regarding Israel avoiding populated areas, a lot of people say they could do way better, with some noting that as all this played out this weekend, Israeli attacks on Lebanon and Gaza continued. And in Lebanon, for example, we saw a strike on a city in the southern part of the country, reportedly killing 8 people, with notably this being a city where many people have fled to from other parts of the country because of Israel's invasion. And then in Gaza, an Israeli strike on a school that had been turned into a shelter killed 9 people, with 3 of the dead there reportedly being Palestinian journalists. And then besides that, I should say, in Israel, there's also been an incident being investigated as a terror attack, with a man there driving a truck into a bus stop near an Israeli military base north of Tel Aviv, killing 1 and injuring at least 30 more. And so all in all, the violence just shows very little sign of winding down. And so for now, we're gonna have to wait to see where things go from here. But that's the end of today's show. Thank you so much for watching. For more news that YouTube thinks you're interested in, you can click or tap right here. Also, if you want to get a fantastic deal on one of the best shirts you'll ever wear in your entire life, you can click right here, get something over at beautifulbastard.com. It also helps support the show. Thanks again. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.